The next team that I want to talk about is the Dallas Cowboys. This is a funny topic for me because I do like when the Cowboys lose because they're the Cowboys, but I don't think I hate the Cowboys as much as most Eagles fans do. But it is a fun topic for me. And I want to talk about why the Cowboys are where they are. I don't know if you call it a collapse. I don't know if you call it like a meltdown. Anyone that, wasn't the Dallas Cowboys saw this coming before the season started, actually. I had people saying they're going to be a fourth straight year with 12 wins. I said, no, they're not making the playoffs. They're not making, because they're not a playoff team. Let me give you all some advice. This is great advice, by the way, for sports. I know when we're talking about our rivals, we like to think everything negative they say is just hate. But sometimes you should really listen to what your rivals say. Just so I'm not biased, let me give you all an example. I don't care. I was on record. I said, I don't care what you all are talking about. Carson Wentz is the best quarter. This is the best thing since sliced bread. And Cowboys fans, like, yo, we see Carson Wentz. We're not rocking with him. I defended Carson Wentz till the cows came home. Biggest Carson Wentz guy in the world. Cowboys fans tried to tell me. I was not trying to listen. And they ended up being right this time. As an Eagles fan, let me tell you what's wrong with the Cowboys. The Cowboys overestimate all of their best players. That's the bottom line. They take pride in someone being a Cowboy, I think for life and stuff like that. But the Cowboys made some critical errors on 3 players, and I'm going to point them all out, and they're going to shock you. And I'm not going to do it in the order you think. I'll start with the most shocking one. And the most shocking one is actually Ceedee Lamb. Ceedee Lamb is extremely overrated as a wide receiver and a weapon. The reason is, and you guys have seen me on Twitter calling me crazy every time I say it, abusing him, calling him slot boy. And I know what you guys are going to think. Oh, you know how many guys dominate from the slot? Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, this, that, and the other. I get that. And that's fair. But Ceedee Lamb is not those guys. And I've been trying to tell you guys he's not those guys. He balled out in a contract year. And that is most of the time what happens. But when you watch Ceedee Lamb and his game and his engagement, he's not the guy. And I do think he can be your number one receiver. I'm not going overboard saying he's not a number one wide receiver. But he's not the type of receiver that, as long as I have this guy, it can be a bunch of scraps around him. And I've been trying to point that out because of the way Dallas uses CD. Sometimes I can use my own team as an example, guys. Sometimes we got no plan. Sometimes the offense is effort. AJ Brown is up there somewhere. Ceedee Lamb is not that guy. And there's nothing wrong with that. But people were calling me a hater when I said that there was a whole entire tier difference between AJ Brown and Ceedee Lamb. But that's just the facts. And it's not even just talent and skill, but it's play style as well. I think there's a pretty big difference. And I think that hurt the Cowboys thinking they had more weapons than they did. We'll stick with the offense and talk about Dak. Some people say Dak is overhated. I don't think he's overhated. I think he's criticized rightfully so. I used to always joke, like, I'm not saying Dak Prescott's a scrub, but I just always call him, he's Black Kirk Cousins. They're the same. If you look at the stats over the years, they're the same person. They are the same exact player. Dak's mobility is overrated or overstated, rather. Doesn't move as much or as well after the devastating ankle injury that he had. So when Dak comes back, he's not just a pocket guy. He does move around. I don't want to overstate it, but he's not a weapon in the running game. And Dak Prescott has shown, I know everyone's going to bring the stats up. What his stats look like last year were great, but I don't know what it is. I don't know schematically what it is, but if you go look, and this is some of the statistics that I saw at Dak Prescott's interceptions, when they take place, who they take place against. When you look at Dak Prescott in big games and versus good teams, even during the regular season, he's two different people. And My problem with that is the Cowboys paid him as the best quarterback ever. And people are saying the market is the market. I'm going to get to that. But you paid Dak like he's Patty Mahomes. But the fact of the matter is Dak is just like any other normal quarterback not named Patty Mahomes. I would put Lamar Jackson in that category now. And I think, heck, I'll also put Josh Allen in that category. Some of these guys can elevate people. Some of these guys don't need weapons. Jalen Hurts needs weapons. Don't sit here and act like I'm just bashing Dak. Dak needs weapons. Patrick Mahomes, you look at the nonsense they got out there with the Chiefs as far as their receiving and their weapons. Well, it doesn't matter. We got Patty Mahomes. He's gonna ball with whoever's out there. That's not Dak. It's never been Dak. It's never going to be Dak. But you paid Dak like that's who he is. So this season was one of the easiest things to predict. I saw like 6 straight 20-point blowouts at home for the Cowboys. Who saw this coming? So I think you could also probably throw Micah Parsons in there. You guys got to give me your thoughts. I know it's new media and all that. I don't like the podcast thing. I don't. I think I pay you enough to, if when they're negotiating that new contract, Micah Parsons, highest defensive player ever, I would not sign him until he stops that podcast. It would be a clause in the contract. You cannot do the podcast. Highest paid ever. Highest paid ever. You show me. Is it football or is it? That's just, it's old school. I'm sorry if I'm being an old head. I hate it. And you know what? Even if the podcast, could we meet halfway? Can you do the podcast about something not NFL football? It's just so odd to hear my guy talking about the top quarterbacks and he doesn't mention his own guy. I don't think Dak Prescott's a top quarterback, but if I was on his team, I'd lie about it. That irks me. And again, I know probably got the younger dudes. I love y'all. Man, you're tripping. Everybody got a podcast. Everybody this, but I want to win. I want someone who wants to win. I'm not saying Micah doesn't, but I know he's not 100% because you're doing this and you're doing that. I just don't love the podcast. And I think I would even feel better what if you talked about NBA? What if you talked about video games? I don't care what you're doing. It's just so weird to, during the season, have an NFL podcast when your team's not doing what it should be doing. They say winning fixes everything. Maybe they start winning a little bit more. We won't have a problem with it. Or people like me, the old heads, won't have a problem with it. As an Eagles fan, my biggest fear with the Dallas Cowboys has always been Jerry Jones not leading that team. And people always jump to, oh my gosh, you're hoping Jerry Jones passes away. No, I never, ever would say anything like that. What I mean by that is I figured like maybe in his advanced age, he'd say, here's the reins, son. Like, I know he's got Junior there. Was it Stephen Jones? I always figured he would do that, but he doesn't. And that's my biggest fear is like him not being involved with the franchise and letting just not ridiculous people run it. But man, something I can't help but think of the situation the Cowboys are in now. My biggest fear this year, as an Eagles, I was legitimately scared of the Cowboys. I thought they were going to make everyone play on their contracts. Ceedee, Dak, and Micah. Obviously, Micah is, and then like maybe let Dak Prescott walk. I really thought that was their plan. I'm like, there's no way they're going to pay Dak like that. Oh my gosh, they're actually going to do it. It's my biggest fear is the Dallas Cowboys without Dak Prescott, because I know the Dallas Cowboys are not winning with Dak Prescott. The way he performs in bigger games. I know that's a hot take. I know people love Dak. I actually like Dak as a person. I think Dak is a great guy off the field from everything I've heard. I know he's went through some stuff. I believe he had a family member who took their own life and stuff like that. So I like Dak. I like everything he's about. He carries himself the right way. He's everything you want in a franchise quarterback, as far as being presidential and diplomatic. I love to see that from a black quarterback. That's super cool. I just don't believe in his skill set. I don't believe in his performance. I could be wrong. And maybe 6 years from now when he's hoisting a Super Bowl trophy, whether it's for Dallas or with someone else, I could be, man, I was really wrong about Dak. But for some reason, this time, I don't think I'm wrong about it. So I was really afraid that they were going to, let him seek trades and let him go to the Raiders and let them give him all the money. But no, they gave him the contract. And I wonder if Dallas is already regretting it. I also noticed there's a lot of criticism of Dallas's coach, McCarthy, and I can't speak too much on whether he's a good or bad coach. I don't watch the Cowboys. I don't observe the Cowboys like that. But I can tell you he won a chip. He did it. He's been to the mountaintop. And Aaron Rodgers, too. That helps. But if Dak is who you say, right? 3 straight seasons, 12, that's tough. Ain't nobody really, or was it 2 straight seasons of 12 wins? But regardless, everyone's not, how do you do that with a bad coach, like with a coach that's holding you back? I think one could argue maybe Mike McCarthy's being held back by being undermined by the Dallas leadership. Who knows at this point?